Through connecting to that space, while in sacred sites or at megalithic structures, as you say, you are able to feel into the subtle energies that are present there. There will be understandings and deepenings that you will not be able to explain other than simply through the reception. You will just know how something works. You will have a feeling like you are remembering something, and this is how you know that it is ancient truth and wisdom. It is something that need not be explained through the intellect, that need not be proved in any way. It is something that you simply know and feel, and this comes through the subtlety of the heart. This is why we say clearing out of the heart and becoming more aware of the heart space without distortion, without layers of ego overlapping and covering it or veiling it, is part of the evolution of humanity.
Whenever you're ready.
May I reflect the light of the One. May I hold the other self as the object of love before me, that which I am serving with utmost care, devotion, and divine reverence. Allow me to purge all negative and self-oriented thoughts, egoic drives, and selfish consumption from my being. May they be released to the cosmos as one, not to return. May all beings know the light of one. May all beings experience the truth of love and the love of truth. May I be a shining reflection of this truth, in my core, outward ever. May my heart be ever my guide, shining with the flame of the One. May I be a representative and leader of honest, compassionate integrity. Sweet Creator, make me in your image. Make my will thy will. Make my flame thy flame. May I serve thee ever and forever as the one true light. And so it may be, and so it is.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. And with that said, Eluña Noel, welcome on Just Tap In. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
You know, it's funny because if you had asked me this 2 days ago, I would have maybe given a different answer. I am most excited chronologically for this upcoming trip that I have to Egypt. It is an initiatic pilgrimage, and I am so honored to be included in it. And that is really what I am most excited for in an outward way. But inwardly, I have been given the gift of much more time to spend in contemplation. And I have been able to understand myself in a deeper way than compared to any other time currently. So those are the two things, inward and outward, that I am the most excited for.
Well, now that you opened the gate toward Egypt, because I know when I was going to Egypt this past December, I was feeling a lot. Had a lot of expectations as well. Regarding Egypt, why do you feel so connected to go right now?
Well, so I left a meditation on February 11th, very specifically. I finished my regular daily meditation. And in the meditation, I had been given a vision of going to Egypt, seemingly out of nowhere. I do not know where it had come from, but it was quite beautiful. And my partner also, when we got out of the meditation, told me that he had a vision of going to Egypt. And I said, really? Because I did as well. And then that day led to a synchronicity of finding this exact pilgrimage that I am going on, all related to this meditation that I had. So that happened in a fun fact, exactly 1 year after I went to the King Tut exhibit in San Francisco City, it was the last day that it was here, and they tell you not to. I definitely touched everything I could. They totally get upset with you when you do that, but I did. You do have to. So I touched all of it, and exactly 1 year later is when I had this meditation, and that same day is when I found the pilgrimage, and it happens to be coinciding with this group of beings coming through who call themselves the Three Guides, and they are related to Egypt, connected there, and also connected to the teachings of Thoth and of Atlantis. And so that all happened basically at the same time. So I feel deeply humbled and honored that I get to be included in this trip, and that I'm going to get to visit these ancient and sacred sites that are just imbued and buzzing with energies. So yeah, I can't wait.
So you say that your greatest joy is to help others connect to their soul's emerging presence. And I'm really curious to know how you began to connect with that emerging presence, all the gifts that you've been activating since you were a kid. What was that experience like? And I'd love to know a little bit more about your story. Like, what led you to be Eluña right now in the present moment?
That is a beautiful question. It was a series of letting go, a series of initiations, and a series of diving into my own underworld. I am certainly a proponent of inner excavation and of exploring the inner underworld, because we all have it. And I actually feel it is part of our beauty. I had to come to an agreement with myself, but also an understanding that it is in the depths and it is in the darkness and all that we feel that is chaotic and that how we are destructive in our nature. That is part of the beauty that makes up who we are. And that darkness and that destruction, it could be from previous experiences, as in my case, a lot of previous experiences that I've had in my lifetime that have been very dark. And as I continued through life, that was the only fodder or story information that I could tell to myself. So I continued and perpetuated this darkness and this destruction and this chaos by telling myself the same stories over and over again, because I was exploring and understanding this deep inner landscape. It was really when I made the decision that I was done learning through pain and instead wanted to learn through love, that I finally could get off of that train and break the cycle and make a conscious choice, using a lot of willpower, I will say, to move into a different way of being. And it is funny that you asked it in a way of how I am Eluña now, because that is my true name, and I kept that hidden for a very long time. But when I felt really like I could live up to who Eluña is, that's when I finally started sharing that with just my close community, and then now with the public, as I have been led to. So it's been a deep, dark journey.
And I know every names have meanings behind them. For example, I know that my name has a meaning. When I looked up your name, I couldn't really find any previous meaning to it. So what does Eluña mean in your eyes?
Truest self.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I had never heard that name. And with the ñ, like in Spanish, that's why I thought, and I asked you over email if you spoke Spanish, because I didn't know if you were from around that part of the world. So yeah, I've never heard that name. Very unique. And thank you for living up to it and owning it.
Thank you.
I know you're also a Montessori teacher, which is a very different style of education for young children. What role did working with children play in you activating these gifts and opening your heart?
Oh my gosh. Beautiful question. I love talking about children. So working with children, for a long time, I thought it was the easy way out. no, it's not. It's a very, very challenging job. And Montessori teaching is not just a career. It really, if you are going to be a Montessori guide, which is really what we call ourselves, not teachers, guides, then it is a vocation. It's a calling that you are answering. I had the gift and privilege and honor of working with children who showed me all of the places that I could not see myself in. And they brought up the aspects of my ego that I could, on my own or with others, I could easily pretend like they didn't exist. I could ignore them. I could repress them. I could justify or explain them away, but not with children. When you are with children, you cannot hide. You cannot hide your heart, and they bring out the deepest, most beautiful parts of you, and they also bring out the deepest, most insecure parts of you. And it was the greatest gift and the most playful accelerant in terms of my spiritual journey that I possibly could have had. So I would not be who I am today without the hundreds of children that have been in my life. And anytime I talk about my time with them, I always say it is an honor. It is not a burden to have worked with children. It was an honor to, because they have brought me and shown me who I really am and also who I want to be. So.
And
Yeah.
Were you witnessing or observing something different about the new children that are coming in as you were working with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel so grateful that I was able to meet them in a different way. I also had the honor of going to a Montessori school as a child. So the education part of it, the curriculum, if you will, was really in my bones. That was not something that I had to learn. It was the learning of the new child, of where they are. And it is an ever quickening pace, as we know, here on Earth. And so the children are changing more and more. And the way that we have to meet them as adults is constantly changing and is also increasing in complexity, because the children of today, they come in with a far greater awareness in terms of the collective than I think our previous generations did. That is certainly reflected and to me somewhat obvious because of the internet, and not just the use of children interacting with internet or media. That's not actually what I'm referring to. The media and the internet being in our collective consciousness means that we are more connected than ever before. And so the children who are born into that, their own consciousness is hyper connected. So that is part of the reason also why parents that I would work with, they would ask me these very complicated questions of, I tried to tell this story to my child and they saw through it. Why is that? Because you can't hide things from your child anymore. The children of today know exactly when you're lying, and they will reflect that either directly to you with their words or in their behavior in terms of acting kind of extreme or having some kind of distortion showing itself, like anxiety or eating problems, many things that I faced. So they are highly sensitive and highly aware, these children.
And some of your guides are Pleiadian Priestesses. And in one of the channeled messages, they were talking exactly, I think it was them, about the authenticity leading to true freedom. I think to give a little bit of a context of how you started connecting with these priestesses and how they were teaching you about your own freedom in this life and how they continue to teach you today.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to have them. They are beings actually from a previous life of mine prior to Earth, and that is how I know them. I got connected to them through an the only Akashic channeling that was ever done for me.
With Debbie? Debbie, who is?
Yes, with Debbie Solaris. Yeah, with her. Oh, so grateful for her. They have talked about and helped me to understand, for me, my path, my authenticity means that I must show up fully transparent. And that does mean my transformation must be a transparent experience. And what I mean by that is I cannot hide myself away when I really want to, when I am going through a transformation. It is something that I have to express, and it must be like on display, essentially, with my trusted people, in order to have the honest reflection back to me of what I am going through. And I don't necessarily think that's the same for every person, but it is certainly a way to not hide from yourself. I am very good at hiding from myself. My ego aspects are very good at keeping things hidden. And that is the way that I get through that, is by being fully transparent and authentic. And that is really the way that I operate in the world, in terms of the conversations that I have with people. Anytime I'm on camera, any sort of recording that I do, it is straight from the heart. There is nothing premeditated, preconceived in any way. I'm just showing up, and I'm listening, and I'm receiving, and I'm expressing. So that is how I continue to operate in this world.
I think part of not running away from any truth is getting the opportunity to tap into this vast vibrational library of the cosmos, which is the Akashic Records. How did that begin for you? And how did you begin to start tapping into this information now that you're working a lot with one-on-one clients? You got your own reading a couple of years ago. So what is that? And let's give a whole overview of the Akash and how you started to tap into that.
Yeah, beautiful. The Akashic Records, as we call them, are a vibrational continuum of information, or a vibrational compendium of information that lie in the quantum field. So anyone is able to access them because we are all connected to the quantum field. There is no secret code that you need to get in. Many people experience them. I would say almost everyone experiences them in their own unique way, because we all have our own perspective. The way that things come through for me is I perceive a lot of information. I receive information auditorily, visually, somatically, so in my body, and then also energetically. So it allows for many beings to speak to me and also through me, just because of the way that I can interpret information. My own experience with the Akashic Records started actually through getting affirmed by Debbie Solaris, who read my Akashic Records. Essentially, there was all of this information that for years since I was a child, I had kind of been saving up and storing, and my higher self had been saying, so those are your past lives. This is who you were. This is what you've done. But because I didn't have any proof, and my analytical mind was desperately seeking it, I just held on to it and thought, okay, one day maybe it'll make sense. And then Debbie Solaris, without me sharing anything that I was holding on to, basically told all of the stories that I had been holding in myself for years since I was a child.
She validated it.
She did. And she gave a little bit extra, which was wonderful. It was just what I needed. And so after that, there was no question that I had already been tapped in. I already had been able to access things. And it was simply a matter of figuring out the way that I took information in and interpreted it, and basically what I needed to do to set up my environment and my physical body to be the most receptive. And so that was just a process of discovery and journeying. And now it has become far more, I would say, complex and multi-layered, the things that have come through. My somatic experience, for example, when I am connecting with people, sometimes, and when this first started happening, I was very concerned. People asking about health conditions, but they would ask, and the information would come through in my body. So I would feel somatically what they were experiencing, and that allowed me to be able to tell them, I can see that your right foot and your right knee are where you just had surgery, and there's all of the scar tissue. And then they would affirm that. So the way that I'm able to tap in has grown in complexity, and the love that I have of exploring the Akashic Records has also certainly grown and expanded over the years.
Yeah, you must have to be curious, like a very curious soul, to be able to work with the Akashic Records. Because for me, it's like, imagine you can ask any single question in the world and receive an answer. So when it comes to your relationship with the Akash, what questions do you find yourself exploring over and over again? What are you most drawn to intellectually, spiritually? What information are you seeking answers to right now?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. One of my greatest joys is looking into history. So the historical context of many things that are mysterious. So the pyramids, for example, I actually recently did a private channeling about that, of what they are and how they were built. Another fascinating topic to me, again, historically related, are the lost civilizations. So Atlantis and Lemuria. I have looked into those fairly extensively, and looking into the cultures of those places, they give a lot of context as to where we currently are, but also inspiration for where we could return to, and ways that we could rebuild and also enhance on what was already previously there. And it feels like a way to have a roadmap, and seeing with both ancient and new eyes as to where we can go. So I really love exploring those aspects when it's just me on my own. When I am working with individuals, my joy is truly helping them to understand themselves more deeply. That is my ultimate mission in terms of how I am serving others. It is, of course, joyful and even wondrous to see past lives that we've had. That it is a beautiful thing and can be very exciting. But the real purpose of that, if we are not understanding ourselves more deeply, then I don't think it's necessarily serving in the way that it could. So I like to help people understand themselves, see themselves from a different perspective. And that oftentimes comes through past lives, but it may also come through exploring their own inner being as it relates to past lives. So that's where this really interesting mix of my psycho-spiritual training comes with my being an Akashic channeler. That, again, also started just organically and naturally happening, that those things kind of mix together. And it is a beautiful and very healing combination, I will say. So it's really those two things, on my own and then with people, that I enjoy reading.
Yeah, because it can be so easy to get lost in the pure entertainment of being able to see a lifetime where you were a merman or a fairy or whatever being in another dimension, whatever that was. But then it's like, I just saw that, and how do I ground that into this lifetime? And you had a specific previous lifetime, which you mentioned a little bit before we recorded, of something that you were trying to reconcile in this. That's when I see it's like useful, because you're using that.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, and how are you applying it right now in your life?
So the previous experience was in Lemuria, and it is really about actually this beautiful topic that I love discussing, which is this balance and the interplay between love and wisdom. I remember when I was very young when I first learned the etymology of philosophy, and it has just stuck with me ever since. I have continued to say I am a lover of wisdom, but I also love being wise. There's just all the ways that you can play with that word. And even when I think about that word and the way that it's constructed, the philo is the love and the Sophie is the wisdom, and philo must come before Sophie. Love must come before wisdom. That is not my natural orientation. I have been a highly and deeply intellectual person since I was young. I research, thank goodness I went to a Montessori school. I was allowed to research any and all topics for as long as I wanted. I read the World Book encyclopedias cover to cover, all the way to S. That was my big work when I was younger, and did loads of research. So I have been deeply and highly analytical for the majority of my life. And it is only through the balancing and the reconciliation of love and wisdom that we can show up fully in service to others. If we are only operating from a place of wisdom or the intellect, I think that we are going to get more of what we have now, more of the same in terms of the society and the systems that are at play, because it may be that the wisdom tells us to be highly efficient, but that is not necessarily in alignment with love. So my current path is to understand the wisdom of love and the inherent love that we all have, and how that is truly the path that shows us and leads us to wisdom totally on its own, because it is an intelligent love. The universe, the creator, God, is an intelligent love. And if that is where we truly put our attention and our energy and make our intentions around that, then we will go very far, and we will understand ourselves, but also be of service and be a blessing to those around us in a much deeper way than simply the intellect or even wisdom can take us. So that is my reconciliation in this lifetime.
And what are your guides saying about the heart energy that is emerging right now? Is there a new sort of, that, as you were mentioning that, and it was so interesting because we just released a show with Aaron Apke, and we talked about love and wisdom as well, how you look at the teachings of Jesus, and they were teaching about compassion, non-judgment, turn the other cheek. And then you go to the Eastern traditions, and they're teaching a lot of higher level intellectual concepts as well about how the universe works and all of that. And it's a beautiful merger when you can find a balance between those two, and it doesn't become one polarity or the other. So how did you learn to tap into your heart more after having so many years of being in your intellect?
Yeah. Beautiful question. It was a coming back home, and a not being afraid of my heart. It took years of practice. I have been practicing meditation and other body practices such as yoga and qigong for over 10 years now. It's been about 12 or 13 years. And I have needed that in order to, and the Eastern wisdom of being in tune with my body, it has taught me to slow down. And I have become far more aware of the subtleties of my being, the subtle nature of the energy that flows through my body, that encompasses and encases my whole being, and also the sensitivities and subtleties of what I consume. That started with food, and then it went into other consumption such as media and etc. And it is through those practices, those body awareness practices, that I did become more and more sensitive. And that is really what allowed my heart to feel safe to open. And it's what allowed me to be more in tune with the subtle field of my heart. My experience has been with the amount of stimulation that we have constantly bombarding us, which it is all intentionally done to distract us and to keep us out of our heart and out of this sensitivity space. With all of that around us, eventually we go numb. That is what happens because it is a self-defense mechanism to try to shut out all of the noise and all of the stimulation. It is only through this slowing down and this tuning into the subtle that we are really able to understand what our heart is trying to tell us, what our bodies are trying to tell us. And that takes time. And it also takes, again, a tremendous amount of willpower. My guides remind me of that often, because the world that we live in is not built for that. It is very much going against the grain and against a very strong current that is telling you not to tune in, that is telling you not to become more sensitive, to just continue to be numb, and numb even further through various means, right? Through various forms of distraction and consumption of different substances. So it has been a very deep amount of discipline to try to move away from that and to choose essentially not to engage with the world in all the ways that we are taught. I really don't consume media. I've been shown how kind of out of touch I am in that regard. I don't know about a lot of other channelers. I don't know about what, like, movies that are going on, anything like that. I'm just very out of touch because in that regard, because I am very in touch with my inner world and with the earth around me, as well as the cosmos. So that has been my process. And I don't think that there is this, I was just actually contemplating this yesterday. So many people want to usurp the needs of the body and the wisdom of the body for the sake and in search of this higher connection. And I from one perspective, I understand that. And from another, I really want to show, like, don't you see how silly that is? That is counterproductive. You cannot say, I am going to override the needs of my body and force myself to do maybe this one specific diet that I have been told is the highest vibrational diet. I'm going to do that to try and tap into my higher self. So what I hear is, you're choosing not to listen to your body. So how can you expect to hear your higher self? It doesn't work that way for most people. You cannot override the body and the sensitivities and the subtleties that are coming through in the body as well as in the heart in order to tap into a higher consciousness or to the Akashic Records, etc. This must be satisfied, and it must be calm before that can happen. So in response, I guess, a little bit more to your previous question, I could only tap into the Akashic Records because I calmed my nervous system. It could not happen prior to that. So.
And now when you calm down your nervous system, you opened up the floodgates to channel a wide range of beings. And on your YouTube channel, you're beginning to bring some that you've worked with for many years and some new ones. There was some new ones that encouraged you to buy this book, the Kybalion.
That exact book, actually. Yeah.
Well, now that we brought that up, what was that experience like of bringing through essentially the authors of the Hermetic principles? What did you know about them before? What was that like?
I did not know about them before, and they are wanting me to correct or make a note. They are not the authors of Hermetic teachings. They are initiates and scholars of Hermetic teachings, and my understanding from communing with them and talking with them is that they brought through that information that is in the Kybalion based on an older, much more ancient text called the Kybalion. So in that book, as you've read it, and if others choose to read it, you'll see that they quote the Kybalion, which you're like, I'm reading this book. What does that mean? And so I was a little confused. And they do explain, though, in actually the opening of that book, and I tapped in with them myself, that they did not write the Kybalion. They are elucidating and actually creating a very concise amount of teaching from the Kybalion, which is an ancient Hermetic text that currently, to my knowledge, it's disassembled. That's the energy that I have from it. So it's scattered in many places. And I don't know if on a physical level, we are going to be able to access it. I'm not sure as of right now. But that was a very interesting experience when they came through. It was completely unexpected. I sat down to channel, as I always do, and was thinking that my kind of regular guides were going to come through to share a message, and they came through instead. And it was a very interesting experience. It took me quite a while to fully settle and allow that to happen, because their energy is very strong. It's very concentrated. Yeah, it was quite an experience.
You could tell after when you come out of channeling, you're like taken aback, like integrating all of that. But then through time, as you started working with them more, does it become easier to ground in their energy?
Yes, it certainly has. And actually, the mechanism with which they come in has also shifted quite interestingly. Again, all of this is these surprises that happen just on their own. One day when I was in meditation, I essentially received this visual and this energetic understanding of how my channeling was going to be shifting to allow beings to come in. And so essentially I saw these, if you will, compartments in my being. And they taught me that I need to remove this egoic regular part of my being from this kind of main compartment that I have and put it into this other smaller one. And then they are able to fill it. And that process of moving in and out becomes much more smooth and easy. And I will say that while they are channeling through me, this ego part sometimes will jump in and try to have a conversation. It will try to alter, like, don't say that word. What about this word? Or don't say that. And it interrupts what's happening because my ego is coming in and trying to explain something. It is always shut down. There have been only a handful of times that my ego would like to say right now that they have found it helpful because there was a certain word or like an analogy that was offered in some way that actually did prove to be helpful. So that's only happened like 3 times maybe, but the rest of it is usually unhelpful. So I really it's a process of sitting farther and farther back and surrendering more and more to just allow them to do what they need to do. Sometimes my ego gets like a little freaked out because there is only the awareness in the moment of what they're saying, but then after they've said it, I don't remember anything. So in the moment, my ego might feel like, oh God, don't say that. that doesn't sound good, or that's going to scare people, whatever it might be. But it's always exactly what's needed. So deeper process of surrendering, which I guess is just life, isn't it? Yeah.
And I know you said that before you channel, you start kind of receiving who wants to come through, what sort of messages are going to be coming through during the channeling. We briefly talked yesterday through email, opening up the space if we could channel in this conversation. Did you receive any specific being messages that would like to be present today?
I did. My guides, my Pleiadian priestesses, are almost always happy to speak. And when I tuned in with my other guides, they essentially said it depends on the topic of the conversation and what questions are wanting to be asked. Because accessing the Akashic Records, of course, could take us in one direction. So yeah, really depends on what you're wanting, but they are open.
Well, let's honor your curiosity for ancient civilizations, past civilizations. That's another passion of mine. And honoring also that you're going to Egypt next week. Maybe we can start receiving some information around that, the ancient land of Khem. If you feel open, we can create that space for you to channel. Certainly. and then welcome you back after a few minutes.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah. Do you have some questions that you'd like to ask? Do you want me to just tell you when I'm tapped in?
Yeah, just let me know and we'll flow with it.
I call on my angels and guides, my higher self, and the ascended masters who guide me to please be present. Thank you. Archangel Michael, please be present. Please hold us both in your space. Keep us protected. Please keep my channel open, clear, and protected. Thank you. I call on Emilio's higher self and his angels and guides to please be present. Thank you. I call on the Akashic guides to please be present for this reading. I would like to access the Akashic Records to see into the ancient land of Khem. May I please access the Akashic Records to see into the ancient land of Khem. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Khem was the second city of Atlantis, but birthed in a new way, as I've heard the guides mention before, for a new people and for a new time. What was the highest purpose of Khem, and what can we learn from that ancient city and the ancient city of Atlantis to begin carrying out new cities for this new time, these new people on Earth right now?
It was a reconciliation and coming back together of how humanity had evolved thus far, as well as where humanity could evolve into. At the time, humanity had made quite a mistake. There was a tremendous blunder, they are calling it, that was created in the city of Atlantis, in the culture of Atlantis, that ripped apart consciousness. It was as if a hydrogen bomb had gone off in the consciousness of humanity because of the actions that were taken by the Atlanteans. And this does not include every being that lived in Atlantis. It was a select group, primarily made up of scholars, who made a choice that caused a rip, essentially, a tear in space-time, but also in consciousness. And so the traveling from Atlantis to Khem and the recreation and rebirthing of a new civilization was in a part to reconcile what had been done in Atlantis. There is tremendous healing that is necessary and that needs to take place in order to repair what took place in Atlantis. And so the start of that was in Khem. It was known at the time that Khem would not be the one and only place that this would take part in. It was only the beginning, because what had happened in essence was things had been reset and put back to the beginning. And so if humanity could be looked at as a massive field of agriculture, then it is as if the entire field was burned down. So we were starting from one seed again, and one of those seeds was planted in the city of Khem, and it would not be able to be harvested for many millennia. That was known, but it was not for the reason to be sped up, because that is part of the lesson that the Atlanteans learned. You cannot speed up a process on the part of the intellect. You cannot try to outwit consciousness or outwit the cyclic nature of the earth and of consciousness itself. And that is what was attempted. And so it was going back to the very beginning, and for the Atlanteans to learn themselves while also teaching how to become indigenous in a way, how to become one with the earth rather than constantly flying into their intellect and only seeking that which was above them and part of cosmic consciousness. So it was a choice to reconcile what had been done while also starting the seed and the regeneration for future humanity and future generations to come.
And why are these cities aligned to the stars in the sky?
This alignment allows for the greatest reception of information from starlight. As we know, starlight is conscious. They are conscious beings. They are spaces in space-time, if you will, but also out of space-time that contain consciousness, information, and ways that can evolve humanity and activate pieces in humanity that otherwise stay dormant. Through the calibration of this starlight and of these specific forms of consciousness, humanity is able to awaken and understand themselves, not only in a way that is able to be understood at a specific pace, and so it is keeping in alignment with consciousness and with the evolution of Earth and of nature, but also in a way that is in alignment with their highest good, and keeping them constantly and ever moving toward that which is higher, rather than seeking that which is below them and behind them in terms of their linear past.
And in the present time for humanity, how can we begin to remember the true use of megalithic structures like the pyramids to be able to tap into our spiritual evolution? Can we still utilize these structures now at this time for a specific reason?
Some can be used and some are not functional in quite the same way that they were previously, but they can be activated so that they are functional in the same way. It is always through the heart field that you understand everything. For as you know, all knowledge is within you. It lies in that space that all of you connect to and know that you feel things in. It is your heart center. This is where all information lies, and any time you choose to connect with it, you have a deeper understanding of yourself and sometimes a deeper understanding of all of consciousness. Through connecting to that space, While in sacred sites or at megalithic structures, as you say, you are able to feel into the subtle energies that are present there. There will be understandings and deepenings that you will not be able to explain other than simply through the reception. You will just know how something works. You will have a feeling like you are remembering something, and this is how you know that it is ancient truth and wisdom. It is something that need not be explained through the intellect, that need not be proved in any way. It is something that you simply know and feel, and this comes through the subtlety of the heart. This is why we say clearing out of the heart and becoming more aware of the heart space without distortion, without layers of ego overlapping and covering it or veiling it is part of the evolution of humanity.
What is the deeper work that Eluña is meant to carry out in her upcoming journey or voyage to Egypt?
The expression of truth. It is through the unveiling and the transformation that will take place within her and that will take place without her as well, and expressing this to those around her, that she will learn and begin to understand the deeper piece of why she is here, the deeper piece of how she fits into the whole that is around her. She currently has a very small and microcosmic perspective of her piece, which is as it should be. It is not meant to understand entirely what one does and the impact that they have. In order to allow the transformation to take place without distortion and completely fulfilling itself to the end, she must see herself merely as the sand, as the earth, as part of the humus below her. This is why humility has been part of her lesson for so long, and she has understood this and now wades through the mud with happiness, with pride, with a smile on her face. She wades through the mud and shows others how to do the same, while always gazing up toward the sun.
That's beautiful. And regarding the principle of gender, what is the necessity of the re-emergence of feminine energy in our world today?
This is the coming together of the polar opposites. This is the understanding and integration of how true generation is created on this planet. It is called gender, but if you look etymologically, it is also the generation of these energies and what can be manifest when the two come together in a harmonious, cohesive union. So far, there has been a push and an extreme of masculine energy on the planet. This is in part due to the time that was in Atlantis, and we, as scholars of Atlantis, spent time there, and we, in a way, were part of this cataclysmic event that took place because we did not do anything to stop it. This is part of our reconciliation with all of humanity. It was through our misguided understanding that we felt the willpower of man, or of masculinity, so to speak, was far greater than the soft receptivity of the feminine. We chose to go over this power, go over this force of receptive femininity because we knew we could, and it led to a ripping and a cataclysmic event that tore through all of consciousness. It is the reconciliation of the choices that we made at that time and that humanity has been evolving out of and through that now the feminine must come back online. There is an understanding that there must be a balance of willpower and feminine receptivity in order to fully embrace and understand one's true nature. As the true Hermeticists know, it is only this alchemical union that the true understanding of the Creator can be known. The Creator is the balance of all. And therefore, in order to come to unity consciousness, there must be an understanding and balance of these two polarities in being. And there is much more to say about how this law of gender is related to the manifestation in forms that affect not only the individual, but also the collective, as well as the entire cosmos.
Where do you see your teachings and that of Thoth's teachings carried out right now in this current civilization? And what can we do to begin to understand and tap into more of these principles of the universe to avoid such cataclysmic changes in our world?
This is the next question, because the work that has emerged from the later part of the 1900s was only able to emerge because of where humanity was headed at the time. We did place this work to arrive somewhat early in consciousness so that it could begin to sprout and bud exactly at this time. The re-emergence of it is directly related and linked to the creation and understanding of the feminine principle coming back online at this time. It is only through the soft acceptance, the receptivity, the passive energy, if you will, of taking in information and allowing it to enter and saturate your being that you are able to fully understand the principles that are outlined in this work of the Hermetic text, as well as all Hermetic texts. If only the masculine principle is online, then the masculine principle will once again take it to the extreme, as that is what it is good at. The masculine principle is exceptional at doing, at excelling. It will always move forward, as that is its movement, a forward momentum. It is very helpful and useful when tapping in if you want to create momentum or drive in your life. It is unhelpful and, in fact, chaotic and destructive if you are wanting to understand something in your life. Only through understanding can compassion or patience come about. Only through slowing down can the heart come online to listen more deeply as to what is right before it. This softening is an opening in humanity. It is an opening of consciousness, and it is a way of receiving what is both new and old, so that humanity can go forward with all tools, with all understandings and abilities fully online and able to be comprehended, not from the intellect alone, but in tandem and union and sacred cohesiveness of the heart.
And through your understanding of planetary alignments, what are you seeing that humanity right now is going through with all of the influences that we've seen from things such as solar flares or the solar eclipses that we've been witnessing? What are the influences from these, and what changes will humanity begin to see through the after effects of these alignments?
All celestial bodies are celestial beings. They are energies contained in various dimensions, as well as various forms of consciousness not yet quite understood by the majority of humanity. We will say there are a select few who are quite tuned in and do know these celestial bodies very well, as beings that are sentient and also as beings that can be spoken to. The sun is one of the greatest levels of consciousness that affects the earth, for it is what allows the earth to continue spinning, as it were, with all of life teeming. The sun is a part of the evolution of consciousness and the evolution of humanity, and has supported humanity and the evolution of the earth since time began for the earth. The other celestial bodies, they are around as guides. They are also around as witnesses, teachers, and purveyors of information in ways that, again, most of humanity has not understood. One way of viewing them is as if many layers are being added onto the earth and are pressing down on the collective humanity. The pressure will increase for time until most of humanity finally chooses to acknowledge the pressure that is coming over them. This is why there is such a push toward numbing and toward turning away that which is true, and right before you, there are many distractions that are placed. The pressure from these celestial bodies are not able to be felt unless attention is given. The pressure comes in both the form of evolutionary consciousness, but also a heightening of awareness, as these are truly one and the same. With a higher awareness, one is able to expand their consciousness further than they had previously. Each celestial body carries with it its own energy, its own lesson, and its own mission and desire to help humanity or help the earth in the ways that it is most able. There are beings in the celestial space that have already been connected to by others, and there are some yet that have not been connected to. The way they interact or communicate is not yet readily understood by the majority of humanity, and for some, their energies are far too deep or heavy for most of humanity to take in at this time. There must be a further raising of consciousness and a further heightening of vibration before these energies can be fully taken in and the lessons understood, as each planetary body is a teacher unto themselves. There is much more to be said about this.
What do you love most about humanity?
The willingness to go on. There has not been a moment in which humanity has said no more. There are always beings who are willing to push past. There are always beings who are willing, even in the darkest and most chaotic of times, to sit in quiet contemplation and understand their place. This minuscule example is truly the start of consciousness, and it is one of the greatest strengths of humanity. The heart and going within. The space that we forgot and that we turned away from is now the space that we have the greatest love and appreciation, and we will say even admiration for humanity. This constant willingness to continue and carry on in spite of all that is around them.
What would it take for humanity to become a galactic civilization again? Or have we been before?
From our perspective, humanity has always been a galactic civilization and always will be. It is only that right now the lights are off, so to speak, in the upper attic of the house of humanity. They are unaware that they can open the window and go outside and see their brethren from across the world and across the cosmos. They choose only to see themselves and what is inside of their home, and most of them what is on the screen before them. Distraction is a way of keeping down humanity and of numbing them to a place where they are not able to see the beings who could be just outside or even inside of their own home. What we want to say on this topic is that humanity is coming to a place of needing to understand their connection to the cosmos. This very isolated view of only going within prevents humanity from seeing beyond themselves. Forever they are drawn inside and distracted and taken into the darkest parts of their being and sucked into some of the black holes that exist within their being and never able to see outside of them. It is this constant moving in that is very much akin to a black hole that the majority is in currently. Humanity must choose to stop going inside of that place that is numb and must choose to remove themselves from the distractions that are ever present and instead learn the subtleties of their being so that they too can experience the subtleties of other beings. There are some in the galactic family that are not able to experience humanity's emotions or the energy of where most humans are. It would, in ways, affect them and damage them beyond comprehension or measure that most of humanity cannot understand as they are in alternate dimensions. So, in order to come into contact with these other beings, there must be a collective raising of awareness, a raising of consciousness, and we will say a raising of sensitivity in order for humanity to control what is happening inside and not allow that which is inside, which has been distorted, to be in control of them.
And what emotions offer us the highest evolution, the highest teachings?
Joy, compassion, empathy for others. These are where the soft places are in the heart. Each of you can feel them when you tune in. The softness of the heart, the emotions that are expressed from that space, that is where humanity is headed. Not even the aggressive forms of love, which some of you are accustomed to. Those are also expressions and outdated forms of past experiences on Earth. It is through the softness, it is through the opening that humanity is able to move and ascend, as you call it. This deepening and understanding happens only through stillness.
I also heard you say once that grief allowed you to understand how humans can be so far away from the all. What did you learn specifically about grief that takes us away from the all, and how do we move back to it?
Grief. She had to cease feeling that. Grief is the ultimate separation from source. It is the expression and place of original wounding in all beings. It is the way that source understands itself and plays this game with itself, but it is also quite painful. This experience of grief, it is a cut or a wound that is ever present. And when it is denied, there is also a denial of the other places of the heart. Grief is the wound, and therefore it is the softest and most open place of the entire being. It is this wound of separation that when it is tapped into, and when beings are able to go into this space, that they understand themselves and truly develop compassion. There are times in beings' lives, humans' lives, in which they must experience a tremendous amount of grief before they can understand compassion. It is through all of this grief and these many layers of tears that are shed before they can truly and finally understand what it is to tune into the heart. But this is not always a necessary path. The choice to go within and understand this grief and sit in this space of deep sorrow and softness, this is a choice that all beings can make, and it is a way of understanding this without being forced into it. Spirit, your higher selves, will always lead you to the place where you are next meant to learn each lesson. But by choosing to go within on your own, you are saying, I am here, I am ready, and I am showing up for this lesson. Please show me what grief is so that I may understand compassion. Please show me what darkness is so that I may understand what it is to be a light. There are many ways to show up, and each experience of the heart is always one of a softening. That must always be the direction that you move.
And how would you describe the new being that is emerging on the planet right now?
There is now no more a denial that can take place. The beings that are emerging, we see them as small or younger than you are currently. They are emerging with a most robust perspective of cosmic information in a way that is incomparable to previous generations, at least in your recorded history. They are coming in with truth in their eyes, and they are also coming in with truth in their hearts, and sometimes a sharp tongue that shows that they will cut down or dismantle mistruths that are before them. This is most perplexing for the adults that are around them, because this is not how they were raised. It is not any sort of energy that they grew up with, and it can be very alarming. However, for those who are open and receptive, and there are many families and beings who are star seeds or origins beyond the earth that are raising these children, they are much more aware and they are curious about their children. They listen in a way that is most important. They are showing that they are willing to listen to divine cosmic intelligence and the path that is unfolding before them by choosing to listen to the child before them. They are understanding from a different perspective how the children are expressing truths in a way that they are now being willing and able to humble themselves. They will follow their children, not to the extent that their child is out of balance, but to the extent that they are able to understand their own hearts in a deeper way.
And how would the current systems that we have in the world need to shift or adapt to contain the new energies of these children that are coming into the planet right now?
New systems. There are a large number of new systems that must come online, and some of the children that are currently here, some who are just bordering adolescence, will be the creators and proponents of these new systems. They know exactly and most precisely what is necessary and what is helpful for the new incoming generation, as well as Earth herself. Even those who seem far removed from the Earth are, in fact, acting on her behalf. They are so in tune with her energy and with the energy and evolution of technology that they are able to take humanity to a new heightened state. Again, not the same place that as Atlanteans we fell from, but a different, more integrated place, one that is integrated with the earth, one that is integrated with consciousness. They are here and present with these energies only at this time because all of humanity, even unconsciously, has agreed to create the space for them to enter. They will continue to create new systems, and they will remake this world in a way that to some, it will be unrecognizable. This is not necessarily a time that will be seen in your lifetimes, but the genesis of these systems and the recreation of this earth is already underway and will begin more strongly this year.
If you had the opportunity to speak directly to the younger generations, the leaders of the future, what would you say?
Always learn from the past. Never make the mistakes that have already been made. Do not attempt to recreate the wheel. Look at yourself as the wheel. See yourself in the grand cosmic design of everything and how all of humanity and where all of humanity has already come from. This is the greatest level of understanding that can happen for humanity by looking at what has previously already happened to understand where one must go. There is an understanding and a taking in of previous ancient knowledge as well as not so ancient knowledge in the past and weaving that into the future. Understanding yourself as part of the whole, and understanding all parts that are within you as part of your whole, seeing yourself as the fractal reflection that you are, seeing the selves that are within you as the fractal reflections that they are. This is what will allow you to see yourself from a higher perspective. You will understand that every breath you take could not have happened without all beings around you. And you understand that every choice that you make will affect all beings, even those who you will never meet in your lifetime. This interconnectedness, this broadening and joining of a humanity as a common family, this is what we wish to leave with the generations that are upcoming. Always make this your precedent and what is driving you with every act and choice that you have. Every goal should be toward this end.
And for one of our last questions, what is one of the highest timeline potentials that you are piercing into? And how could you encourage humanity to create that potential for the future?
We say it is a constant reshuffling and a removing of layers. It is a constant reshuffling and seeing yourself from a new perspective, seeing all aspects of yourself from a new perspective. The inner world must be understood and peace must be made inside before there can ever be a hope for peace to express itself in the outer. You are, as we have stated, fractal reflections of the all. The peace, the harmony, the coherence that is within, this is the reflection of what is possible without. And each piece that we share with humanity, each knowledge that we want to broaden within humanity is only shared with that in mind, that peace is created inside, that there is a deepening and understanding of the one common family that all are in order to move into a future that is harmonious and cohesive. This is the timeline that we see for humanity. It is the greatest timeline that could happen on Earth. The choice that is made by each individual rather than being forced in any way to make the choice. This shows a heightened level of consciousness and awareness on part of humanity and will, in fact, speed up time as it currently is, rather than trying to hold on to a cycle as we did. This would enhance the cycle in a way that is difficult to understand in human terms, but it is as if you are jumping ahead many spaces on a game board. This is what is possible for humanity, and the more who choose to make this choice of their own and who consistently show up with discipline and use their willpower in this way, this is how this timeline can be reached.
Thank you. And finally, what was your favorite memory from Atlantis?
There is much emotion with this question. Individually, we each have separate memories, but in general, it was the coming together and all working toward a common goal that was felt prior to this selfish desire that was brought about in us. We all were holding the highest perspective for humanity, as well as our own culture at the time and all cultures that existed. We, in our desire to see all beings as one, thought that through the use of creating, of technology, of enhancing and mastering various skills and aspects of the body, that we would get to a place where we would be able to unify all. This was not the way that it turned out, but just before there was this tear, there was a tremendous understanding and commonality and a thriving of our culture that included all beings, even those who did not live in Atlantis itself and in its many different commonalities or principalities around the world. We could understand cultures and bring together one human mind in a way that previously had not been done and currently has not yet happened again. This time, however, it will be with heart and mind as one that there will be a joining rather than through mind alone.
Is that what you wish to be your legacy?
It is both our legacy and our responsibility to fulfill and reconcile that which was done previously.
We honor you. We appreciate you for this contact. And with all the love, we will see you again next time.
We share our thanks, respect, and gratitude for this as well. A heartfelt transmission indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, guides. The records are now closed. The records are now closed. The records are now closed. My energy stays with me. Your energy stays with you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. That was very deep. That always, it always shows the depth of the person I am with, how far I can go.
Do you remember anything from the channelings?
There are times when the Akashic guides will give images while some other beings are speaking. And so sometimes I will have flashes of those images and there's some sort of understanding, but I really can't remember anything. I have to go back and listen to all of the channelings that come through because I don't know. And there are things that I might listen to it 3 times and swear that I did not hear whatever was just said before. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting experience to be the messenger only and have no say or even remembrance of what was said.
Talk to us about your experience with Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations.
Oh my gosh, I would love to all day. After 12 plus years of meditating with so many different kinds of meditation, all kinds, I have truly understood that really his meditations are the true essence of what meditating is. It is to get to a place of nothingness, of, I would say, infinite totality. That is really where we are coming into when we are able to enter into that void space. And it is through his understanding, and also I'll say his own tapping in and being given transmissions, that he has been able to share very simply with all of us how to attune our body to being able to be in that place. And I will say it does take time. And I always recommend, some people kind of just jump in and buy his meditations. It really is not, you can't understand it without the teachings of what he shares. And this is kind of just a fun thing that came through that I want to share with you, particularly because I know that you practice Joe Dispenza meditations. One day, while I was in meditation, I get so many downloads when I'm in meditation, and they just leave again, and I'm like, it's okay, I know they'll come back when they're needed. One download that came was that part of the reason why Dr. Joe interacts with his audience and the people that are learning the way that he does, and how he says, he consistently is saying, are you with me? And do you understand? The reason why he's doing that is actually to train your subconscious mind to accept him when you're getting meditation with him. So if you are saying yes consistently, yes, with your conscious mind, your subconscious mind starts to say, I can trust this voice that is before me because we are saying yes consistently. We are in alignment and in agreement with this. And so then when you're in meditation, it actually works much better when you are listening to his meditations, because your subconscious mind is basically primed and fully ready to receive Dr. Joe's voice, which when I first heard a meditation from him, I was like, this is not a usual meditation voice, but we're going to go with it and see what happens. And it's totally worthwhile. That's exactly, yeah, exactly. And now I love it. I absolutely love it. It's wonderful.
And you mentioned his own tapping in. Something about that kind of seems Arcturian in a way. I've heard you briefly mention that.
I love that. Yes, it is. It is exactly Arcturian. There are a few beings who have influenced in smaller ways, like given kind of nudges, but it is Arcturian. That is my understanding from really, it came to me one day again as a download in meditation, but then I chose to look into it further, and it is Arcturian. That is why it is so clear and also in alignment with the body. The Arcturians have, again, my own understanding, they have kind of the deepest understanding of spiritual integration and like a spiritual balancing of the physical with the the mind and the intellect and the heart. And that is where Joe Dispenza is able to take us to. So,
Well, when you're in the King's Chamber in a couple of weeks, if you guys go up there, on the sarcophagus, this was a discovery by Robert. There is an imprinting of the Alpha Omega symbol on the side of the sarcophagus. Wow. So when you're there, you'll be able to, you can't look at it from the top down. You kind of have to like angle a little bit to the side diagonally, and you see it like carved. But since the sarcophagus is made up of mostly like granite and like crystal, like if they would have done that by hand, it would have shattered everything. So it had to be some sort of different technology. And Robert does say that is Arcturian technology as well. So
that is incredible. Actually, just to share, I did a private, again, I do these things called Channeling After Dark that are not yet released to the public. There's a whole series that will have to come out at some point. And one of the things I tapped into was the Atlantean school system, which was so fascinating, by the way, absolutely incredible to see how they did things. And one of the things that happened to come through in that reading was about this technology that is almost like a laser, except not. And I can't fully remember because this was quite a while ago, and I only listened to it one time that I did this, but it is like a laser in that it can etch into stone and almost any substance. But really what it does is it basically shifts the particles of the rock or whatever substance you're going into, but let's say granite. It shifts the particles of the granite in such a way that you're then able to put any shape that you want into it. And this is part of how this was Atlantean technology. And my understanding when I came out of that and listened to that again is that's how they made all of these incredible hieroglyphics and depictions in Egypt was with this technology. That's why it looks like it is laser etched. So many people say that, which I'll see it soon myself. But that's how. And so I wonder if that is part of it, if that is because it is a rearrangement essentially of the physical structure that they were able to do in this small handheld tool essentially. So pretty amazing.
Yeah, and on the walls of the King's Chamber as well, it's blurred out much more now, but you can start seeing there's images around the walls that represent each zodiac symbol. It's like a calendar around the walls. So it's wild. Wow. But you mentioned the school systems in Atlantis. What was that like?
Truly beautiful. And I feel like I hope that we go back to this type of schooling. Essentially, it allows, so children really were not, I mean, we say school because that's what they were learning, but it looks nothing like our school. Essentially, they were out experiencing the world. They were learning through experiences, both in groups, but also individually, just on their own. There were very kind of these sporadic times, and I was trying to get an exact timeline on it of like once a month or however often, and I'm not sure how they decided this, but they would periodically have what we would call like a lecture. And in the lecture, they would come together essentially to learn about universal and cosmic principles, or principles of the earth or of reality. However, there are many different layers, of course, that they would learn about, the things that are actually important, as we know. So they would learn about those things. And then they had smaller groups in which they would go have different experiences. One experience that came through was very interesting. It was this young boy in the Akashic Records. He is the one who allowed me to tap in and look at his experience. His name was Monty. That's what he called himself. And he said that one of his favorite smaller group activities was in which they would basically stand on, to me, what looked like pink granite or pink marble. I'm not sure. It was maybe even sandstone. It was rough. Stand on it, and they would learn how to move. That they would become one with the consciousness of the stone and learn how to move the stone while they were on it. So I essentially asked Monty, I gave him a picture of our skateboards and longboards. And I said, this is what, and a hoverboard. I said, this is what it reminds me of. And he said, yeah, it's essentially that, except those, what you're showing are really primitive. Like what we were doing was becoming one with this stone. And yes, it was fun for them as children, but it was actually teaching them a deeper understanding of being one with their environment and what was around them. So that was the other piece. And then the third component of their schooling was an even smaller group, which is really where they worked basically one-on-one, maybe with one, possibly two other children would be in this group with one mentor. And the mentor was there to guide them into the places and the topics that were of the most joy for that child. So for Monty, for example, his greatest joy was understanding the principles of using this handheld tool, which relates to the rearrangement of particles. Mm-hmm. So that is just something he loved, was understanding consciousness, how to combine his consciousness with other things around him, such as the stone, this like stone block that he would ride, or this handheld tool, which also could only function with consciousness. It was not, I was asking him, I was like, so is it electric or like what? He said, no, it only works with consciousness. It's basically a way to like hone and laser your consciousness in using a tool. That is how he explained it to me. It was amazing, incredible. And the schooling system itself, I mean, that just seems so perfect. Yeah. Mind-blowing.
You know, we look at movies out in the world and there's usually like some subconscious memories that are put into movies that, you know, for example, like the Avatar, the Airbender, which they just put out the live action, and I watched the whole thing in like 2 days. I'm fascinated with it. But we had on Elizabeth April. She was also able to like channel a past life of mine in Atlantis, and she said that she saw me teaching children how to manipulate water. And so that's sort of what you're saying of like how powerful consciousness really is, where we can move the elements, where we can move physical objects, because essentially we can shift matter in an instant when we become the wave function instead of the particle.
Right. And cease to see ourselves as separate from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they doing that in your experiences? And when you went, were they manipulating the elements as well?
Yeah, that was really the thing that Monty loved the most of all, was learning how to manipulate elements. That was just his most enjoyable thing, and that's why he was working specifically with this mentor to learn the balance of manipulation and using it in accordance with all of the cosmic laws, not just for selfish consumption, I guess, but in balance and harmony with everything. And that is what they were doing, is becoming one. They were joining their consciousness with the consciousness of the being that was before them, whether that being was a rock or the wind. And they were able to, in that way, understand themselves as the wind or as a stone. And that was the beginning of, for children, this kind of, I'll say, meditative state of just becoming one with that before they learned how to move it and manipulate it, because it is through that becoming one. To me, that feels like, just as a human, I would say that's like empathizing with the wind. You're learning how to experience the wind and why the wind functions as it does, so that you're not going to misuse the wind in some way. Yeah, that's how I would understand it. And it was beautiful. It was amazing to see.
And also shamanic traditions have a lot of these principles as well. Everything has a consciousness, being in harmony with the elements. You mentioned also that you had a lifetime or some memories in Lemuria. What, in your understanding, happened between Lemuria and Atlantis? Because we've heard so much about that there was a big war or something happened between those civilizations. What, like, how would you clear that up in your own experience?
Yeah, certainly. So I actually have kind of a unique perspective because of what of the past life that I had while I was there, and essentially after this split, in the Atlanteans made this choice to which I also did a whole channeling about that. It was very interesting. about the choice that they made to go forward. And my understanding, the way that it was explained to me, is that they made this choice to use their own willpower over the will of the heart, over the consciousness itself, to try and override that. So that is essentially what, in a very nutshell version, that is what led to this fracturing. When that fracturing took place, the way it was described to me is that it affected the entire planet. It went around the world, that there was this split in consciousness that affected everyone. And part of the reason is because the Atlantean civilization did have such an influence over the whole world, not only because they were living in multiple places around the planet, but also because they really were like the most prolific and engaging with a lot of beings. And so Lemuria felt in a very visceral, deep way this fracturing of consciousness when that took place. That led to certain beings in Lemuria. The wording that was given to me was essentially choosing to ground themselves. So rather than moving in and out of the fifth dimension, which they did very freely and easily, they became inundated with fear, some of them. And so they grounded themselves, as in they remained more 3D because they were trying to kind of understand what was happening. That grounding, and therefore the kind of split in consciousness for Lemuria, then created a split in that civilization itself as well. So they were now in this place of I'll say weakness, of not being unified, not understanding each other in the same way. And so when the Atlantean people chose essentially to come and take over, there's a lot that I've seen in that way. There have been some stories that I have seen play out in which Atlantis was trying to get Lemuria on their side in some way, of like supporting certain things that Atlantis was doing. And Lemuria was saying, no, that's not really what we want at all. And in other ways, Atlantis was, I would say, definitely attempting to co-opt their consciousness. And I don't necessarily think that any sort of agreement that Atlantis was offering was going to be necessarily fulfilled on. So I think Lemuria made the right choice by not agreeing, because I don't think Atlantis was in a place to really be trusted at the time. And so eventually this war came. The Atlantean people came and basically started war with Lemuria. And it was the imaging that has come through is very chaotic, of course, because it's a war, but it's also slightly confusing for me as a human, because there's fifth dimensional beings and third dimensional beings that are being interacted with. Oh. And what I just kept seeing was, again, this like grounding of these beings who are in the fifth dimension. They would become grounded because they would become fearful of what they were seeing, of what was happening to their people. And that's really what took place. Eventually, this fear spread through so much of Lemuria. The Atlantean people came. The Lemurian people were weak, not only in terms of they don't have any sort of physical defenses, but also weak in their consciousness because they were inundated with fear. And so the Atlantean people destroyed a lot of them, and some of them were able to leave. And I have seen that over the course of the earth changing, many of them made their way to inhabit parts of Hawaii, actually. And it certainly looked different when they were showing me when they first got there, but that is essentially, they joined the culture of indigenous people that were already there. That's my understanding. So the Lemurian people and the indigenous people of Hawaii then became one people. And that's kind of how they got away from Atlantis. So as best they could, anyway.
And at this point, was it, the physical suit vessel that we see now as human, was that the same one that they were using, or were they appearing in different, let's say, physical suits at that time?
Oh, that's a great question. So they really looked, they all looked somewhat different to me, but more or less human-ish. I would say there were some features that were maybe slightly dramatic or enlarged, such as there were larger foreheads on many of them. Like longer kind of stretched back foreheads. And it's funny actually that you ask, because at the time when I looked into it, it looked very normal to me, but that's probably because I look at so many beings now that I really didn't think much of it. But they don't really look that human. The majority of them looked just kind of like humans, but yeah, with bigger features, slightly larger eyes, but mostly the forehead was, I would say, the biggest difference. And probably their heads in general are slightly larger. They were slightly taller. Yeah.
Was there ever a being that like you got like put off by, like scared because of how they presented themselves in their suit?
That's so funny, actually. There were two. There was one who was actually a very sweet being named Mishka. And I don't know where Mishka is actually from. I've never seen another being like Mishka. And it was a very brief interaction that I was actually taken through. So I didn't have control of asking questions. I only got to learn this being's name. But they have like a pink magenta kind of skin, very rough. With like what looked to us like moles on the bottom of their chin and kind of on their face. And they're just very large and bulky. And I don't even think I could begin to describe their face because it looks so different, but kind of cheekbones, very small eyes, very, very strong, like square jaw and little tiny ears. That was the first being that I was ever like, well, that's kind of a lot. But that's because I was younger. I was a child. The next being is when I was older, and I will say I feel deeply honored, deeply honored, was to see a mantis being. That was I guess a dream kind of mine, was to see a mantis being, because they are, I have a lot of reverence for them. I'm not sure that is just a soul reverence. I don't fully as a human, I don't fully understand where this reverence comes from, but I revere them. And so seeing the face of one once was astounding, and it was slightly off-putting because I didn't expect it. Only because I didn't expect it. But then once I knew essentially what it was it was an honor to see. They are actually deeply beautiful to me, truly.
And when you say that you are a ceremonial practitioner, does that have to do with plant medicine, or what types of ceremonies do you like carrying out and holding space for?
Yes, actually, it is a variety. I have been a plant medicine facilitator, and I've actually moved away from that more or less. Many people still inquire about it, but I actually have moved away from it because I am currently in a place where I'm not in alignment with that, and the amount of holding space that it requires would mean that I can't do all of this, right? And so that is what I used to do, but I also have held initiatic ceremonies, and primarily, which this is maybe I haven't actually publicly talked about this before, but I have held initiations for elders. And maybe that seems kind of funny because I am not an elder, but there are beings in my community and who have sought me out, who have had a strong urge to enter into elderhood and understand themselves in the context of what it is to be an elder for their community and for their family. And they have simply requested that I be the one to hold this ceremony for them, which also was a very deep honor. It was a very deep honor to be asked and requested to do that for multiple people. So those are some of the initiations and some of the ceremonies that I've held, but there are many. I hold ceremonies every seasonal transition. There are so many that I do.
Wow. I just can't wait to continue getting to know you, getting to know your work. January 7th, 2024, you launched yourself publicly in YouTube. You are now 3 months into that journey. What have you been feeling up to now, and what is your vision? Where do you want to take this into the next coming months and into the future?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I've certainly went in with a lot of naivete. I am not a social media person, and I'm a woods person. I'm a deep in the forest person. And so I really had no idea what to expect with any of it. And it's only been because of my team, specifically my manager, who has explained that the growth that has taken place is, I guess, rapid compared to many. And I think because I had no idea, I really don't have any ego around it. I just, to me, this is just what's happening. And truly, the deeper that I move into this work and the more that I engage with the online community and also with the beings who come on to my Q&A, the people that come there, I only feel myself becoming more and more grounded and humble. It feels as if with each new level of trust that is given to me, I am consistently reminded of how I want to turn people back toward themselves and back toward this place inside to understand who they are and to see me only as a reflection and as a mirror of their own truth. And that is not what I initially had in mind when I was first setting out. Before I did release that video, I sat down for quite a long time in a meditative contemplation and really asked myself, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I releasing this? I have been guided to releasing this, but what is my why? This human self of me, what is it? And at the time, the answer was to be a light in the dark. And that was truly enough. And now that there has been enough engagement and enough people, I would say, who are experiencing the light that comes from these different transmissions, which is absolutely beautiful, it is now my job and my mission to reflect that light back and to be both a projector of light and an emanator of light, but also always a reminder of the divinity within others. And so that, I would say, is my guiding light. It is my mission, is to continue to help people see themselves in this way, to constantly come back to who they really are, because it is all within. We know that it is all within, and it's only through coming in that we can actually understand and see ourselves that way. Mm-hmm. So that is my greatest honor, is to lead people in that and to be that reflection. And if at the time I can help bring through some helpful information from these various beings who are in touch with me, then that is beautiful as well.
I see you, sister. Thank you for just doing the work that you were called to, and also doing that with such quality, beauty, the way that you're carrying the mission out seems and it looks like you have an incredible team around you that is helping you build this, and it's just been beautiful to witness. We end every podcast with a segment called the Final Trio, which are just rapid fire questions that you can answer in any way that you want. Before that, where can people find you? We mentioned your YouTube channel. We'll link that in the show notes. Where else would you send people to connect with you deeper and work with you if they feel called to?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that reflection. And you can find me at eluñanoel.com, which is just my name, ELUNA, noel.com. You can find me there. I will say you should sign up for my newsletter if you would like to work with me, because there is a little bit of a wait list piling up right now. So I will announce when my calendar is open. And then also my Instagram page. If you are interested in looking at some of the upcoming trips that I have, which there are now many in the works because of some invitations that I have gotten. Egypt is the first, but I will continue to post on Instagram while I am away, and probably less on YouTube. So you're welcome to follow me on there as well.
Beautiful. For the final trio, the first two questions are personalized to you, and then the final one we ask at the end of every show. So the first one is, how do you remember your magic every day?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Wow. Thank you for asking. Truthfully, the moment that I wake up, I smile and I say thank you, and I touch in and tune into my heart, and I set my intention for the day. And then throughout my day, I continue to be curious and see where is my intention showing up. And that reminds me of my magic.
Thank you. What is a what if scenario that your higher self is helping you consider right now in your life and for the collective?
Oh my gosh, that's great. You're wonderful. Well, a current what if is, what if for my own self, what if this experience and the teachings that I have to share, what if I have done enough in my life to be able to guide others? What if I have learned from the suffering enough to not go through it again and to be able to guide others as a light? That is, my ego really is addicted to the suffering, and my higher self is inviting me to consider, what if that's not necessary anymore? And beyond that, what if I am in a place to now teach others more than just offering YouTube videos with channelings and doing Akashic readings? So that is currently what's underway in my own inner world. Thank you for asking such a personal question. And for the collective, what if we really all came together in unity consciousness by choice? What if we did come together like that and remember our true essence and our true nature without being forced to do so? That is very much in my kind of cosmic atmosphere, if you will, that is floating around a lot. And that question being asked of me makes me question my own work and how to further and make that come true, really, make that our reality. So I'm glad that they are asking me that.
And for the final question, I know we will have to do this again. I would love to have you back on. The last question is called the time capsule question, and it requires us to travel out a little bit into the future, around 15 or 20 years. I chose that time frame because I see that is going to be a time when the younger generations will have the opportunity to step more into leadership positions around the world, where they can really influence at higher stages and higher levels. And when they get there, they're going to need some guidance from mentors, from teachers. And in this way, you were given the opportunity to leave a time capsule behind for them. In this time capsule, you could include anything that you want beyond your imagination. It doesn't have to be something physical. It could be a message, a transmission. It could be even like a book. Infinite space in this time capsule. What would you leave behind for the future leaders of humanity? And in this time capsule, what do you think would be the best tools, information, or message that they would need to carry out the new earth?
Oh, what a great question. Actually, I know right away. It would be imagination and creative play. That is what I would leave behind for sure. Imagination and creative play that is not held in any way. It is infinite, and it is not influenced by anything other than your own inner self and true nature, because that is really all that we are, and all that this is imagination.
And on top of the time capsule, there is a gold plate with your name on it, and you can etch in, sort of with like the laser technology the Atlanteans use, that you could leave behind a question for these leaders, like a contemplative question that they could just sit with and ponder afterwards and in their life in general.
Ooh, that's beautiful. I think I would go with, what is your heart's true calling? To always remind them to go back to their heart, because that is where I have always found all of the answers, and I am told that is where all of the answers are. So, what is your heart's true calling?
Yes. Eluña, Noel, thank you for your immense wisdom, love, light, and for showing up for us to be able to see the reflection of the divinity in you. I appreciate you. I would absolutely love, if you want to have Eluña back on, please let us know in the comments. Let us know what you loved about this conversation, and we will definitely have to do this again if you are up for it.
I would love to. Yeah, it was so nice to talk to you. I knew it would be, and it was an absolute joy.
Me too.
Thank you for all of your beautiful questions.
Yes, I felt it from the moment you popped on the ethers in the internet for me. So thank you for doing this work.